good to be back with you for another day of Bible study. My name is Kevin Young, and so thankful that you are joining us again as we are walking through the Enneagram personality type. There are 9 personalities, and what we're doing in this Bible study is spending 1 week on each personality type. All of this brought to you courtesy of Christ Table. If you'd like to know more about Christ Table, feel free to head over to www.christtable.today. There, would love to encourage you to sign up for our email list, as well as consider donating to this ministry. We cannot do this without you, and so we appreciate those who partner with us, and we provide a lot more than these Bible studies for you because of doing that. Now, if you'd like to know more about this Bible study and how you can get deeper involved, visit this URL, go.christtable.today/bu. There's an Amazon link to the book that is the foundation for this study by Ian Crone, The Road Back to You. You're going to find a PDF there that lists all 36 Bible readings so that you can join us on this journey. And you can also take, if you don't already know your Enneagram personality type, there's a couple of tests there that you can take in order to help you know where you fit in with these personality types and maybe which Bible characters best reflect you. Now, I also want to invite you to be a part of our book discussion that happens on Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be in Chapter 10 this week discussing the Type 6 Loyalist. We'd love for you to read the book and Chapter 10 and come and join us. But even if you haven't read the book, even if you just want to listen in and not participate, you can do that. It's by way of Zoom. All you need to do is go to that URL right there, go.christtable.today/discuss at 8 Eastern on Wednesday night, and we'll be there waiting for you and would love to involve you in the conversation. Now, one last thing before we get to today's study, I want to make sure that you are aware of our spiritual resource boxes. We've got another one coming in the mail in a couple of weeks here, sometime in mid to late July, and we would love to put one of these in your hands. There's a book there. This one's going to be about deconstruction. It's going to be specifically about the Bible and what do we do with the Bible whenever we have questions about it. It's going to give you a bit of a different lens through which to look at the Bible. And so it's going to be challenging in some ways. And if you've deconstructed and struggled with the Bible, then I think that this one will be hopeful to you as well. You can't buy this. We just send it for free to anybody who donates. And again, if you'd like to become a donor to Christ Table, that URL right there, www.christtable.today. You can donate safe, secure. It's really simple, and we'll make sure to get one of these in the mail to you as our thanks whenever they come out. Well, let's dig in. Today we are in the second day of our look into the Type 6 personality, which Ian Crone has labeled the Loyalist. Yesterday, we looked at the Apostle Peter. Today, we're going to look at a prophet in the Old Testament, Jeremiah. Now, prophets are the voice of God, and so prophets typically, especially in the Old Testament, have a very special and interesting connection and relationship with God, and we're going to see that today in Jeremiah. But before we get to the specific text for today in Jeremiah chapter 1, I want to make sure that you're aware kind of foundationally what some of the background is to a personality type 6. So, first of all, their basic desire is to be secure and connect with others for the common good. And so security, very important to a type 6 personality. They fear being insecure or being without guidance. They fear having to take risks. They like for everything to be right, to be correct, and to be sure before they take a step forward, which means that the thing that they struggle with most often is fear, especially when they don't feel like they have enough guidance or whenever they're feeling insecure or whenever risk is involved. Typically not risk takers. Now, if you're wondering whether or not you may be a 6, do any of these words describe you? Responsible, loyal, suspicious, trustworthy, committed, anxious, a team player, a planner, a self-doubter, or someone who's paranoid. Now, for all of us, probably one or two of those words will describe us or have been used to describe us. But if all of those words or almost all of those words describe you on any given day, then you may well be a type 6. And that means that you are going to find resonance in the prophet Jeremiah. Now, as we get to Jeremiah chapter 1, one of the things that we notice about type 6 personalities, and one of the things that we will notice in Jeremiah as well, in our passage for today, as well as if you keep reading and learning about Jeremiah, is that whenever a person who is loyal, who is a type 6 personality, a thinker, is stressed, they will become a workaholic. They will throw themselves into their work head over heels. Daylight to dark, it's always on their mind. They're never able to set it aside. And that is a characteristic that for a 6 isn't normal whenever they're in a healthy place, but is very normal whenever they're in a unhealthy place, and that's an indicator of being unhealthy. They also will tend, whenever they're stressed, to hoard resources or hoard things because they fear needing them in order to be able to move forward at some point. And so whenever they're stressed, they'll begin to hoard things rather than risk giving something away that they may end up needing. And whenever stressed, a type 6 will pretend to have it all together in order to keep their anxiety at bay. They hope that by pretending everything is okay, that it will reduce their level of anxiety and they'll be able to convince themselves that everything is okay. And whenever a type 6 is stressed, they often won't try something new unless success is assured. And so they become very adverse to taking risks or to facing challenges or to even moving forward. Now, conversely, whenever a type 6 person feels secure and isn't stressed, they tend to let go of that anxiety. They tend to trust their gut over authority figures. Remember, guidance is important, and so authority figures are important to a type 6 personality. And whenever they are in a healthy place, they tend to trust themselves and trust their gut and what they know, which is oftentimes a good thing. They're even able to see life from more than one angle, which means they're able to see life from more than their angle. They become more flexible. They become more lighthearted. They become really kind of opposite of what they look like in a lot of ways whenever they are stressed. So when we come to Jeremiah, what we're going to see is we're going to see a type 6 personality, a loyalist, who is under extreme stress. The nation that he has been called to be a prophet to is really just absolutely and utterly in a place of not just resistance to God, but an antagonistic relationship with God. And God has just kind of had enough, and all of these things are unraveling around them because of the way that they are acting, the way that they're treating God, the way that they're living life. And so Jeremiah is kind of caught in the middle as God's voice. He's kind of caught in the middle between God and these people. And for a 6, that's going to create a lot of stress and it's going to create a lot of fear. But God needs him, and we're also going to see that God wants him. And so it's interesting that Jeremiah has been kind of traditionally called the weeping prophet, because the book of Jeremiah, which is his book, really is kind of a depressing book. Jeremiah is always kind of a little bit under gray clouds, and the call that he has been asked to do is to essentially teach and preach and take God's message to people who he is well aware are going to reject that. So it is a job where there is going to be no success, at least as measured by seeing a result or a turn from what you teach and what you preach. So he's going to have to redefine success, which is difficult and causes a lot of internal anxiety for him. The book of Lamentations is also a Jeremiah book, and it's kind of one step worse than Jeremiah. And so the weeping prophet designation is really kind of an honest assertion about Jeremiah and his state of mind and his life. And for those people who are 6s who have gone through seasons or even extended seasons of trauma, of difficulty, of being stressed, you will find a great friend and resonance in the person of Jeremiah. So we're not going to handle the whole chapter. I hope that you will read the whole chapter of Jeremiah 1. It's relatively short, I think around 19 verses. And you might even continue reading in Jeremiah. But what you're going to see is essentially a lot of the same in the book of Jeremiah. But I want to kind of pick out one, excuse me, I want to kind of pick out one little segment in here in order to kind of set up a little bit of nuance about a type 6 personality, as well as a little bit of information about Jeremiah. So the Lord, this is Jeremiah writing in first person, the Lord gave me this message. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb, and before you were born, I set you apart. Now, this verse has been really kind of at the forefront of people's thoughts and conversations over the last few days and over the last week or two, and it probably will go on. And I'm not going to get into all of that, except to say that this verse really kind of needs to be left in its context. It's not intended to be a statement on life before birth. It's intended to be clearly here a statement on Jeremiah's life before birth, and the fact that God had something specific for him that has been present and intentional his whole life, which is something that Jeremiah is going to need in order to face the things that he's going to face. So before I formed you in your mother's womb, before you were born, I set you apart for a specific thing. I appointed you as my prophet to the nation. So God is saying, before you drew breath, you had a mission. I had a mission for you. Jeremiah says, yeah, God, I can't speak for you. I'm too young. I think this is probably an excuse, but maybe Jeremiah was young. Maybe he felt as though he didn't have the experience or the skill set yet or at all to accomplish the things that needed to be accomplished in such a chaotic time in Israel's history. One of the things that is important oftentimes, though, for a 6 is to shut up, is to hit pause on the thinking. Type 6s, along with type 5s and type 7s who are next to them, really kind of process and see and understand the world through their mind. Other personality types see, process, and understand the world through their heart. Some other types see, understand, and process the world through their gut, through their instinct. For a 6, though, it's through the mind. And so whenever God comes to Jeremiah and says, I have a job for you, I've always had a job for you, Jeremiah's first inclination is to go to the mind and say, I'm not equipped in some way for this. I'm too young. For 6s, this is a very real and present danger. And for all of us, I think in moments, this is a very real and present danger, is that we will allow the rat on the wheel in our mind to overpower and override what we know to be true, what we know to be needful, or what we know that God is asking us to do. In fact, sometimes it may well be that we might completely miss what it is we're supposed to do because our mind has not stopped long enough for us to actually hear anything other than our own thoughts. Now, Jeremiah has the great privilege of God actually interrupting his thought process and saying, excuse me, Jeremiah, yeah, for as long as you've been alive, this has been your mission. This has been your call that I've given to you. He has the privilege of God actually interrupting that and doing that. Many of us, though, aren't going to have the privilege of God audibly interrupting our thoughts so that the rat on the wheel of the brain hits pause and stops, which means that we have to build in moments where we stop thinking, where we give the rat a rest, where we quiet your mind. and this is going to be important for Jeremiah to continue to do, is for him to hit pause and not overthink, because oftentimes whenever we overthink, we run the risk of going in a direction that's unhealthy, or oftentimes whenever we overthink, we run the risk of going in a direction that is ungodly. So we need to have moments where we quiet our mind, where we hit pause, reflect, assess, regroup, and ensure that we're whole, healthy, happy in all of the ways that we can be, and headed in the right direction. So as we move forward, what we will see is that the Lord replies, Jeremiah, knock it off. Don't say that I'm too young, for you must go wherever I send you, and you must say whatever I tell you. God says, I'm going to give you the text. You don't have to worry about it. You're not coming up with it on your own. This is an open book exam. It's an open book job. Don't be afraid of the people, for I will be with you. I will protect you from the people. I, the Lord, have spoken. The Lord reached out, Jeremiah says, and touched his mouth and said, look, I've put my words in your mouth. This is for a 6. This is this is like 7th heaven for a type 6 person who is insecure, who needs guidance, who is always concerned or fearful about taking a risk or going in a direction that is not the direction that they should go in. This is the greatest sign of peace and hope and love that they could ever receive, is God simply saying, yeah, you're not on your own. I'm going to be walking in lockstep with you, so you don't need to be insecure. And you also don't need to be worried or have anxiety about what you're going to say. I'm actually going to put my words in your mouth. I'm not going to tell you what to say. I'm actually going to put my words specifically verbatim into your mouth. You're not going to be on your own. Joy. Focus on the positive. For Jeremiah, that is in the midst of a terrible job description, a wonderfully positive turn of events. Now, this doesn't necessarily make Jeremiah's job any easier. It might give him some comfort, some level of peace to know that he's not going to ride off the rails on his own, but he still has to face the people. God didn't say, I'm going to make the people love you. God says, I'm going to protect you from the people, which means Jeremiah is going to be persecuted. Jeremiah is going to be hated. Jeremiah is going to be disliked. But God is going to protect him from those things. And that is the positive in the middle of a very traumatic negative. That is a really good thing. But in addition to that, I think that we have to as well ensure that we are focusing on the positives in our own life. Because whenever we quiet our mind, there is a danger that we are going to only see or think or hear the negative voices if we're in a place of unhealth. And so it is important for us, to ensure that when we quiet our mind, that we are also not ignoring the negative. This isn't Pollyanna. This isn't just pretending as though everything is okay, but this is saying, I understand that there is a mixed bag here. And for some of us, that's a step in the right direction, because we're at least admitting that it's not all bad. Jeremiah's at least admitting it's not all bad. There are some positives here. So even getting to the point of admitting that there's some good, there's going to be some bad. Sometimes there might be more bad, sometimes there might be more good, is a good step. But then recognizing, I'm not going to ignore or pretend as though the negative doesn't exist. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to avoid facing it whenever it's needful for me to do so. But I'm also going to be intentional about focusing on the positive. Jeremiah does that, but I'm honestly not sure that Jeremiah does that enough. And if you read through Jeremiah, you're going to see that he might well not have been the weeping prophet if he had gotten this. And so maybe for you, no matter where you are, no matter what you face, no matter what may be coming your way, type 6 loyalist personality or one of the other 8s, make sure to spend some time quieting the mind and focusing on the positive. It'll pay off. Well, until tomorrow,